Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Fifth Down College Football Talk Show. This is episode number 3, talking about the 2021 Week 2 and our Week 3 picks. I'm always joined by my fellow co-host, Hothra.
What's up? How's
Yeah,
everybody doing?
we're here. Gonna talk about some of the action that went on in this past weekend. There was saw a lot of emotions. It was the weekend of the 9/11 anniversary, the 20-year anniversary. A lot of emotions, a lot of tributes with the Commander-in-Chief game. I know the Air Force, Navy. Lots of really nice, touching stuff. But there was still a lot of football to be played, and we had a couple interesting games that we thought last week weren't going to be go the way that they did, but they ended up doing that. But we don't have to start this week on Thursday to talk about extremely interesting games. We can actually go ahead and skip to Saturday because we're out of that position of chaos of Week 1 scheduling. We can go ahead and start, and we'll start with the big noon game. And honestly, what was the big game of the week? Oregon, Ohio State. We had Ohio State winning, especially after big injury by the Oregon. I forgot his name.
Kayvon Thibodeau, yeah.
Yeah, he was injured. He did not play against Ohio State, but despite that, Oregon actually. We also had concerns about the after the Fresno State game, potential. Could they be potential frauds here? But yeah, let's talk about it. Ohio State losing at home. This is something that never happens. It never does. It didn't happen. And this was an Ohio State team that was almost a shoo-in for the playoff.
Yeah, I had OSU winning the Big Ten. I even thought they might go undefeated, honestly, but the game did not feel as close as it was, I feel like. OSU, to me, has a lot of the same problems they had last year. The offense is very good. That's pretty much undeniable. They have a bunch of talent. They probably have the best offensive line in football. They have arguably the most talented wide receiver duo in football. But those linebackers and those cornerbacks and safeties, they suck again. And that's the big problem. Their defense outside of the defensive line just is not good. And the other big problem was against Oregon. They couldn't run the ball at all. They had to pass every down. So that's very concerning to me. I don't know about OSU at this point. I still think they'll win the Big Ten. Maybe it's going to be either them or Iowa. That's what I'm pretty confident in, but we'll see.
Yeah, you talked about the Ohio State rushing attack. Williams and Henderson, they both had above 10 carries, but only got 120 yards, or about 120 yards combined. And, that's not a very good thing to look at. I don't know, Ohio State, they very gutsy for opening drive of the game to try to go for it on fourth on the Oregon 31, which they failed. But, they looked like they were going to be a super aggressive team, but it just didn't really pay out for them, and
Yeah, it didn't. There's just their defense and their running game is just not good. That's pretty apparent.
Yeah, their secondary just didn't look really good. They gave up about 500 total yards. The big problem with Ohio State though was penalties. They did get penalized frequently during this game, and you can't really have penalties when you're trying to win football. That's just how it is. But a big statement win by Oregon, and now they're looking like the Pac-12 favorites and potentially a college football playoff contender. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Any of your thoughts about Ohio State? What's your thoughts on Stroud? He had. I can't say he had a miserable. He had 400 yards, for over 400 yards. I know he got sacked like a lot. I don't remember how many times.
I believe 4 or 5. I could be wrong.
Yeah, like it. From that perspective, I mean, didn't really look good. But especially at the that final drive, he kind of tried to force it, and that ended up going to an interception, and then the end of the game. It was just, yeah. But that's just how Ohio State. It's been a. I can't remember the last time Ohio State had a. Well, other than like Oklahoma of 2018, I think, when they lost at the shoe. Was it 2018 when they lost to Oklahoma, or was it 20?
Yeah, I think it was 2018.
It was
yes.
when Mayfield did the infamous.
Did the planning thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the last time I saw them lose. I guess in that kind of where they just looked thoroughly dominated on both sides of the ball, and their other losses were pretty clearly flukes, right? You saw the Purdue loss a couple years ago, which that was a fluke, and some other losses. But OSU just looked dominated. Like they couldn't win on the line of scrimmage at all.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. They do play Tulsa, who's been very disappointing going into this. They're traveling up to the Horseshoe. They'll probably get a comeback win. They got Rutgers in the beginning of October. That could be an interesting one because Rutgers, we're not going to talk about their game, but we got to say they look very impressive.
So far, they look pretty decent. Their defense looks really good. Their offense to be determined.
Yeah. But speaking of, I can't really transition that. Let's talk about like another Ohio team, right? That end up almost upsetting Notre Dame in what is historically the first ever college football. Well, no, that's not true. The first ever college football game on the streaming service Peacock, because I don't know. Notre Dame's gonna have a couple of these games on Peacock where, they're usually I'm looking at the schedule, the TV schedule for Notre Dame. A lot of these were like the throwaway games. Like this one was a throwaway, so like you could put it on Peacock. But I don't know, it was actually a football game. I mean, Toledo, and we saw it from the Ohio State game. Notre Dame didn't really look that impressive, especially going like the fourth quarter. And once again, they looked very unimpressive here. Going into halftime, down. And almost, they almost looked like they were going to lose. Other than there was a key fumble, near the end that set up. Or no, I'm wrong. That's true. No. They had another. Right. They had another issue. They had the same issue of giving up 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. One of them, which was pretty late into the fourth quarter, that was, within the 2-minute mark. But Notre Dame did march down the field. Cone, the quarterback, did you hear about this?
Yeah, he dislocated his finger, and he had the coach pop his finger back into place, and he threw a touchdown pass like 20 seconds later. It's very impressive.
Yeah, very impressive, but it's against. That's the thing. I don't think it shouldn't have happened. You shouldn't have to have your coach pop your finger back into place so you can win the game-winning touchdown against Toledo. This was I'm pretty sure Notre Dame was supposed to win by 20 or 30. But this is a pretty bad sign for Notre Dame football.
It is, yes. They're lucky that they get Purdue, which is not a team that I expect to do much. I think it's possible Purdue could get an upset because the other 2 teams Notre Dame's played have not been very good either. And they almost lost to both of them.
Yeah, hope isn't really very high for Notre Dame. Having 2 very close wins against teams that not really should be having close games with, almost ESPN instant classics with. Those are, you save those for games that are going to be, both sides have lots of talent, like the game upcoming against Cincinnati beginning of October, then against Virginia Tech. They have a very, very tough schedule coming up, and that's going to really bite them. And I don't really see Notre Dame this year as a playoff caliber team, especially right now. I think a lot of people don't because
Yeah, you're right. I do not like what I'm seeing from Notre Dame. I need to see more.
yeah, and hopefully they do play Purdue, which I have mixed feelings about that because I think Purdue they may pull off the upset considering how Notre Dame hasn't. Let's talk about we'll talk about that later. But Purdue is going to go into this game 2-0. They have 2 good wins. I could see them possibly trying to get a win here, and it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I could too, but we'll see.
Yeah. Another game we'll talk about that kind of was another big game this week. That was where game day was. It was the Cy-Hawk game between Iowa State, and it honestly delivered. We both thought it was going to be especially from Iowa State, close loss against UNI. I think we both picked Iowa to win this game, and they still Iowa State still hasn't beat Iowa. I think since
I believe it's been 2015, if I remember correctly, 2015 or 2014.
That's like 2 presidential terms. Like the last time, that says a lot. Way too many turnovers for Iowa State though. That's what really killed them this game.
I picked Iowa coming into the year as a dark horse. I had them winning the Big Ten West, and so far it seems like a good one. Iowa arguably has the best defense in the country. As long as their quarterback is, I would say, above average, I think they could genuinely win a national title this year. But we'll see.
Yeah, but like I said, it's just not. The Iowa State passing attack, they haven't had a passing touchdown all year. Just like Purdy, he threw 3 picks. 3 of them were pretty ugly.
They were, yeah. And Purdy's been very bad so far this year. They actually benched him for their backup.
Yeah, but I can't say it's another loss for ISU, but a big loss to a rival like this. They're not in conference play yet. That's the good thing for Iowa State. They still have potential, even with the loss, even with the close loss against UNI. Honestly, at this point in the season, where I guess in their goals for this year, really doesn't matter because they're trying to win the Big 12 this year. Because last year this is supposed to be their year.
Yeah, it was.
But
we'll see. For all we know, Iowa State could make a run and win the Big 12. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Another game I want to talk about. That was very interesting to watch. Former Big 12 rivals went at it. Texas A&M, Colorado. I honestly should have grouped this with the Notre Dame game because it almost felt like a similar situation where a playoff caliber team is struggling and, at the last minute they pull off a win when honestly it shouldn't have been like that. But what did you happen to see the 10-7 game between A&M and Colorado? And A&M, by the way, they scored the touchdown on their last offensive drive of the game.
Yeah, I did, and it was pretty great.
It was honestly Colorado kind of blew this game. They almost scored the drive prior. However, he fumbled the ball. It was on the goal line. It was they called him in for a touchdown, and then there was an official review, and then they said, he fumbled it. It's Colorado ball at the 20-yard line. At that point, I was like, okay, game over. But honestly, no. Colorado kind of went 3 and out under a minute. It was just, and A&M had a really good drive at the end, ran down the field, and got the only touchdown they scored of the game against Colorado.
Yeah, but the thing is, A&M has a lot of problems. I believe their quarterback's actually hurt for the next month.
Yeah, Calzada, I think he is hurt.
Yeah,
He didn't
so they're
really
gonna
have
have
a
their backup.
super impressive game though. Like he only, I mean, he had a below 50 completion percentage. It was just, I mean, that there was an interception thrown. It was just not really, wasn't a really good game for Am, but they pulled off a win. And honestly, I mean, it kind of showed because I think they fell in the polls, but we'll get to that soon. Speaking of falling in the poll, Texas versus Arkansas. Oh Lord, I said something about this. This is going to be a potential game like where Arkansas can win because you were high on Arkansas going into the off. Or
I
going
was.
into,
I like Pittman a lot, their coach. I like Sam Pittman a lot, and I think he's having them overachieve. And I'm correct. They beat the crap out of Texas.
yeah,
They didn't look great against. I believe they were playing Rice week
yeah.
1. They did not look very good against Rice, but they look great against Texas. So I expect this team to be a problem, and they're ranked as well, which is pretty big.
Yeah, Arkansas just. It was a packed game. Lots of fans. They did like the red and white stripes in that kind of thing. Texas. I mean, this should have been a lot like this is a rivalry that's been a thing since Southwest Conference, and this they're bringing it back. I think this is the first time they played since 2015. I think. Maybe you can fact check me on that, but it's been a little bit. This isn't. Texas won that game. Arkansas ended up. Did you see what Arkansas is?
I think I saw a notification for it, but I didn't actually see the tweet. What did it say?
It was like a video. It's a really funny video, but they about after the game. Like I think it had the fucking clip of the guy saying like, "Hey everyone, we're back," and then it said like "Nope" at the end.
Oh, was it their football account that said that?
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, very impressive. Like Arkansas had a very good game, especially on the ground. Like it was they had over 333 rushing yards on 47 attempts. Compared to Texas, 138 on 41. Very very impressive Arkansas team, and they're not ranked yet. No wait, they are. Never mind.
They are. They're 20, I believe.
Oops. But hey, this is a good spot for Arkansas. But let's move on to the next game. Let's talk about an almost upset. Or no, do it. How about this? You want to give let's go ahead and get this out of the way. You want to give your. I don't know if you have a lot to say about Alabama's statement win over Mercer, but you can go ahead and
sure
give some comments about it.
Explain the win over Mercer. I didn't really like that the offense got off to a pretty slow start. I believe we were actually tied with Mercer at one point. It was like 7-7, and we just didn't really take them seriously, which that's a new thing, especially coming from a Saban coach team. He's usually very big on taking every opponent seriously, but we only beat them by 34, I believe, which, I mean, that's a lot better than most teams get beat by. Most of these FCS teams get beat with like 50 points. So, there's that. So, I guess I just would like to see a little more out of the offense early on. We're going into Florida, which is a big game because they're 11.
Hey, can you not make the
I just want to see the offense,
please,
get going quicker.
Yeah, well, I can't really say much about Mercer. I mean, they played, they got their check, and they you know what, they showed up. That's all you can give it. But let's go ahead and talk about this. App State versus Miami, a game that I actually had App State on upset alert, and it almost happened. And then a late field goal happened. Miami won the game. This is honestly very worrisome for Hurricanes fans who, a lot of them still feel like they have potential to be a very good team. And I think they do. I'm with them. I think Miami has potential. However, currently it's not showing.
Yeah, I did see the ending of that game, and I wasn't impressed. I believe, if I remember correctly, Miami needed to get a fourth down stop just to prevent a tie game from Appalachian State.
Like, yeah, I mean, I don't think Derek King had a particularly good game. Also, at quarterback here, let me fact check that for a second. Okay, maybe not, but I don't remember him having. I mean, there's a lot more buzz about apparently some cat, right, at Hard Rock Stadium. He was on like the top section, or like the almost in the nosebleed seats. Like, I don't know how, but he ended up getting like on the railing and like almost falling off, but like a couple of fans used like a flag to try to help him, like, to break his fall.
Yeah, I hear you.
Try to, like, yeah, it's like a safety cushion or something. But that was a nice moment, but not really nice football already out of the gate for Miami. They play Michigan State, which I think that's going to be really a prove-it game for Miami, because they're going up against an equally good Michigan team. But we'll get on that later. And speaking of Florida teams not looking impressive, Florida State with they had the game. The Jayville State Gamecocks. These two teams played each other. I think it was last year, right?
They did, yeah.
The same situation. Jayville State had them early, but Florida State ended up winning the game at the end.
Correct.
Florida State had the game. And then the miracle happened. A touchdown. At time expired, as no one could cover this the Jacksonville State receiver. I think he broke like a couple tackles on his way. It wasn't he didn't catch the ball in the end zone. He had to work, like I think he had to go down like 20 yards or so. Like, he still had to find room to try to make the touchdown work, and he ended up doing that. Just clowned all over the Florida State defense on that last play, and boy, oh boy, I mean, this was an embarrassing loss. Absolutely embarrassing. Definitely like the worst loss out of any team this week. It was so preventable if they knew how to tackle. If people, if they just simply made their tackles, guess what? No one would talk about it. But since they didn't do it, they got embarrassed by Jacksonville State, who almost beat them last year. And guess what? It ended up biting them from not learning off their mistakes last year against Jacksonville State. But so that's enough with like the afternoon games. Let's go ahead and move into primetime, which this week wasn't really particularly big primetime slot or primetime games, but we had a couple interesting stories, and one that a game that shouldn't have been really that interesting turned into a catastrophic defeat. But we'll get to that when we get to that. And Twitter's going off for me. All right, let's talk about
sakes.
What do you want to start with? There's really let's go ahead and start with the one that was kind of tame, right? Let's talk about Washington, Michigan. Washington losing to Montana didn't really bring a lot of faith in them going into this game, especially a night game in Michigan Stadium. I think we both picked them to win.
Yeah, and they did by quite a bit.
Yeah, Morris, he had a better game than he did last, but I mean, he still, it still wasn't a particularly big game for him. Michigan was very good on the ground once again. I think who's their running back? Dang, hold up. I gotta figure out his name because it's on the Blake Corum. He had 3 touchdowns on 21 carries, 171. Very good game by Michigan. I thought, especially after this game should have been more competitive. really, like going into especially the preseason discussion. I thought it was going to be a really good game to watch, but it just really turned into a big Michigan win, and this will get Michigan into the rankings.
It did. They're at number 25, I believe.
Yeah. Arizona, just a quick tidbit, Arizona falling once again to another Mountain West school. BYU's not Mountain West. They were, but they're not anymore. But they lost again. A pretty embarrassing defeat at home to San Diego State. Not a very good year for them. They're looking like the lowest, like they're looking like a team that's going to finish 2-10 after Pac-12 play's done. It's not going to look good for them. Utah BYU. This was a game that really had. I mean, we had a BYU team that had a lot of headlines made about them, especially last season. Oh, they didn't play anyone. Zach Wilson. Blah blah blah, blah blah. This was a game to really shut down all their critics. They beat Utah finally after a couple years of defeat after defeat after defeat. They got the win. It was real, and the atmosphere was, lots of fans there, lots of rowdy fans. Utah did not have a good showing, especially in the first quarter, with 2 turnovers in just the first, which would only be their first or their only turnovers for the entire game. Yeah, it was a very solid football game. BYU did good. The thing about Utah that really didn't, they were horrible on third down efficiency. They went 2 for 9. They gotta get those third down conversions if you want to win, and they didn't. What's to say? I mean, do you think BYU at this point could they be a potential, like, a team that could sneak in to maybe a New Year's Six game?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they lose to USC?
BYU? No, they haven't played USC yet.
Oh, they didn't? Who played USC that I'm thinking of then?
Stanford.
No, someone else the week before. I'm pretty sure BYU played USC.
BYU played Arizona last week.
Oh yeah, it's week 2. So my view of it is, yeah, I think they very well could. Now, to be fair, Arizona's very bad. In fact, they actually have the longest losing streak in college football currently. So we're going to have to see how much of it's legitimate. And that Arizona State game is going to prove it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be a big
game. Or on
game.
Saturday.
After that, they do have a couple of Mountain West foes to deal with, like Boise State. They have to play Baylor, who's started out 2-0. They play Virginia. And then they Washington State. That's going to be another one going. Boise State. That's going to be another good one. USC, which that's going to cap off their season. I don't think no playoffs for them, but I think they could be a potential team that may sneak into a New Year's Six bowl game. Say the American collapses.
Oh yeah, if Cincinnati loses a bunch of games, yeah, they could.
Yeah. But moving on with the late game, or I also want to talk about this because Vanderbilt football. We've won a game. We broke our losing streak. We won a game. The last time we won a game was 2019 against ETSU. At first, it was going to be what I thought it was going to be. Colorado State got off to a very hot start, and that worried me to death. Our offense looked especially like the first half, or the first quarter or so. Okay, the first quarter up until maybe in the middle of the second quarter, offense looked horrible. I don't know what's going on, and why we're trying to. I saw a lot of weird triple option plays, which is something that I wasn't aware that we did, and we never attempted last week. But no, apparently we tried to do this triple option scheme, didn't work at all. Got stuffed, and we went down 14-0, and that's after 2 Colorado State missed field goals. So they had a lot of opportunities to score on us. It was a pretty bad game, but then again, we got a touchdown this season. Ken Seals, This was after the triple option nonsense. We actually went back to playing what we did last week, really like more spread. A lot of shotguns, or a lot of use of the shotgun formation, and Ken Seals ended up getting a nice touchdown before the end of the half. And then after that, Colorado State's offense just kind of just didn't. It didn't go
Do
anywhere.
anything?
They didn't really have a particularly hot second half. They had a pick very early. Other than that, it was just I was surprised. I was really surprised, and we ended up scoring more. Second in the third quarter, we were going into the tied 21-21, a game-winning field goal, a good drive, and yeah, that's how it is. Vanderbilt gets their first win. That does not excuse the game last week, but we'll look forward.
It's a start. You got to win over a better opponent than you lost to, so that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, we're playing a team. We're playing fellow. What's considered to be, the Harvard of the West Coast, I guess, a Stanford team who. Let's go ahead and talk about this, and this will transition to the big story off the field this week. Stanford against Southern Cal, which was supposed to be a USC dominated game, ended up being a massacre at the Coliseum. What was your reaction? How could you, especially just not as a fan, but as a spectator on another team, right? How could you react to a game where... Hello?
I'm here.
Alright, yeah. Just making sure after technical difficulties. But
you went out again, by the way, for 2 seconds up.
No, I'm sorry. But, how do you feel... how would a fan of, the USC feel after that game? Going into the fourth, they were up 38-13, and at one point it was 42-13. And after that, Stanford just stopped caring, sent their second team out, and guess what? They got 2 pity touchdowns, 2-point conversion. The scoreboard says they lost by 2 touchdowns, but I felt like they lost a lot more than they did today.
Yeah, USC, I'm not surprised they lost to Stanford because I wasn't particularly high on USC coming into the year. I didn't expect them to be any different because until Clay Helton was gone, I wouldn't consider them a true contender for the Pac-12. And I was right. Plain and simple, they suck.
But I don't think
I
didn't think the collapse would start this early. They usually USC usually has these collapses. They look really good and they play a team like Utah, team some team they just lose a stupid game to. But Christmas came early. Stanford destroyed them. It wasn't even close. USC didn't even take the lead at any point in this game. Bad. It was bad football.
Yeah, very bad football. Their defense is just horrendous. Very bad. And it's not surprising because the Pac-12 isn't known for great defenses, but their defense was still pretty shit.
Yeah, and this game will be the last of Clay Helton. The big news out of this week, Clay Helton has been fired, and his replacement has yet to be seen. And there's been a couple rumors. But let's just talk about the Clay Helton era at USC. Started 2016. He has accolades. He's won a Rose Bowl. He's won a Pac-12 title. Not many people could say that, but there's been points where you feel like the USC team could have done better.
Oh yeah, Clay Helton, in my opinion, always was a one-year wonder. He was the classic case of an interim coach that basically got on a hot streak, and so he was promoted permanently to the job.
And honestly,
right?
Had a pretty stout talent. In his first couple of years, he had Sam Darnold. That kind of he honestly at this, looking back on it, kind of carried him. It looks like, especially, any USC fan will tell you, he looks like he just didn't manage the game and just went with the flow. That's why his team started especially on the startup, doesn't look so hot, but yet they get these big comeback victories from behind. But that's gonna catch up with you, and that caught up with them, especially tonight, and that kind of exposed we're done. I mean, that's what USC said. We're done with you. But what do you think? A potential replacement for Clay
For Helton?
Yeah.
I've heard a couple names, ones that I consider more likely than others. I've heard Luke Fickell, but I doubt he's leaving to go to a West Coast team. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think the more likely candidates at this point, obviously, you've heard about Urban Meyer, but I don't buy that.
Well, all right.
Urban Meyer is an interesting case because there were rumors about him being interested in the job last year because everybody thought that Helton would get fired, but it turned out he didn't get fired.
Yeah. He's apparently he said this week he's not interested in the job. However, we all know how this kind of looks. A lot of people have drawn similarities between the Urban Meyer situation and the Bobby Petrino situation with the Falcons. So, who knows? He may actually just say, never mind. Considering how the Jaguars are currently, had a really bad Week 1 loss against Houston, he may actually jump ship to USC. I could see it happening.
Possible. I could, but only till the end of the season. I think at the end of the season, if the Jaguars really look that bad, which they do right now, they got blown out by the Texans, which were expected to be the worst team in the league this year.
Yeah, just really, let's just say that Urban Meyer's the only one who knows what, Urban Meyer knows, let's just say, what his future is, but I've heard James Franklin from a couple circles, and I don't really buy that either. I mean, the reason he left Vanderbilt was because he wanted to go near home at Penn State. And you know what? I mean, he's got a very comfortable position. I think he has a very comfortable position there. A lot of people had him, especially last season, like he could potentially be a guy who may be, not on the hot seat, but like he's in warm water. Lukewarm water, that is. But
pretty much, yeah.
Is there any other potential guys I'm missing from the rumor mill?
Really think so? Oh yeah, Bill O'Brien's another name I wanted to mention.
Oh yeah. I'd say that could be a possible candidate. If he wants to go back to head coaching.
Possible, yeah.
Just don't give him GM, just don't give him the GM role. Like he did to Houston. But, I think it's about, let's see here. I think it's about time to move on to the top 25. Is there, games we missed, potentially?
I don't think so, actually.
I think that's all the games I kind of want to talk about. Other than Pitt being Tennessee, that was a good win for Pitt. Really competitive game. And it was very weird to see Tennessee fans. They're very confident in the beating Pitt, but Pickett had a really good game, getting the Panthers the win there. But let's go ahead and move on to the top 25. No huge trends, but we did have some big jumpers. Oregon moving all the way up to number 4. OU took Ohio State spot at 3. Oregon number 4. Iowa jumped up to 5th. Clemson sat at 6th. 7th. A&M moved down 2 spots. Cincinnati moved down a spot. Ohio State, they moved down from 3 to 9. Penn State ended up rounding up the top 10. Notre Dame fell 4 spots after that game against the Toledo Rockets. UCLA went up 3 spots. They didn't play this week. However, just the fact that they ended up, on the, teams right above them ended up beating them or getting beat. So they kind of just benefited off that. Iowa State, they dropped the 14th. Virginia Tech, Coastal Carolina, Ole Miss all moved up. Wisconsin was the only team that really didn't move at all other than Clemson. Arkansas, BYU, 3 teams actually went from non-ranked to ranked. Arkansas went to 20th, BYU 23rd, Michigan 25th. And honestly, I think, is there any objections to this? I think there was a pretty solid week at the poll. There's a couple objections I had last week, but I think I could agree with about every ranking that was put on here.
I agree. It's been pretty good overall.
Yeah, let's go ahead, get to the last segment. It's time for the Week 3 picks. Let's see how inaccurate or accurate we are this week. Let's go ahead and start off. Let's go to the big noon Fox game, which has, week 1 it was blah. Week 2, okay, that's pretty good. Week 3 looks like it's gonna be another blah game. Nebraska, Oklahoma.
Nebraska's looked pretty bad. Give me Oklahoma by like 25.
Yeah. Nebraska. I don't know, man. They did win. They're on a 2-game winning streak. However, that game was against, Buffalo. So I'm not going to give them too much credit. And all the fans are mad. It shouldn't be a 11 a.m. game. Considering how Nebraska has been playing, probably so. Also, Oklahoma, they had a good win against someone. I forgot who they played, but I don't think it matters. They just beat them really badly.
They beat Western Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to the next game, which it's probably going to be better than the Nebraska-Oklahoma. Cincinnati, Indiana. This is a game. Both teams had a lot of upside going into the season. Indiana's early loss against I forgot who they played. Who they play week 1? It was Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah, they got their clobbering against Iowa, and then they ended up beating Idaho by a lot, but not gonna be real points for that. Ritter has been very good for the Bearcats. Combined from his first 2 games, which, to be fair, he didn't really play big competition or stiff competition, but he was 34-37, 6 touchdowns and an interception. Really good guy. Who do you got winning in this game? I got Cincinnati.
I'm going to go with Cincinnati, partly because I'm a fan, partly because I just think they're the better team.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really? Well, we'll see. Our next game, also at 11 a.m. Central Time. Virginia Tech, West Virginia. This is old rivalry brought back. I forgot what. This is for some shiny medallion. I don't know. Virginia Tech, they got early big props for beating North Carolina. West Virginia, they didn't get really a lot of big props for that loss against Maryland. This is gonna be I think it's gonna be a really close game. I think this is gonna be very competitive.
I do too. It's an interesting game, definitely.
And honestly, I think Virginia Tech, they played a good game, right? Last week wasn't really a particularly huge victory, but they did play still. They played fine, right? But I don't know. They only considering their offensive production last week against MTSU, they didn't have over 400 yards, which I think that's a game, or in total offense. I feel like that's a game that you should have at least more than that. And in the North Carolina game was very close, for all things considered. I honestly think West Virginia could get the win here because I think this is a team that looked very impressive against Maryland. It was just like some shenanigans happened. I think I forgot exactly what happened, but there was some shenanigans call West Virginia ended up losing when they
Yeah,
did.
I
But
agree.
I think West Virginia gets the win here.
Don't agree with you.
Oh no. You can't not agree with me. Now this is my show. If you disagree with me, you're a I don't know, punk or something. I don't know what to say. Um so what's your reasoning behind the or what do you think about this game?
What game? Sorry, my bad. I was.
Virginia Tech, West Virginia.
Oh, I mean, I said I agree. I think that West Virginia is going to win.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you disagreed. Well,
No, I said I agree.
I just did a big bit for no reason. Oh well. Um, this game may be a bit entertaining. Yeah, good transition there. Michigan State, Miami. Already preluded this, that a potential game. This is really a test game for Miami early in the season. Honestly, I can see Michigan State getting the win here. I have them winning. I think Walker the third is going to have a good game or another good game. He's already got 5 touchdowns in 2 games as the main back for Michigan State. I think he gets another good win. I think Michigan State this puts him in a position to be ranked the first time this season. I think the first time in a while actually. Who you got winning?
I don't know. Honestly, it's an interesting game. Who do you have?
I said Michigan State.
I guess I'll go with MSU. Miami has not looked impressive to me at all, and I did like MSU's win over Northwestern on the road, so I'll go with them.
Okay. Purdue Notre Dame. We also talked about this. I had a game. This is a game that Purdue can expose the Fighting Irish. You went the. I'm being serious. You know what the Purdue quarterback's name is?
What?
Jack Plummer.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What a name. What a name.
That's funny. Honestly, not really. He's not a bad quarterback, but is this? Do you think this is another game where Notre Dame keeps it closer than it should be and ends up getting another win?
Yeah. I do think they can only do this so many times before they eventually get upset, but yeah, I do think it's one of those things where they barely squeak out a win.
Well, I'll take your word for it. I think I'm high on Purdue, but Notre Dame magic can persist sometimes, and they'll get another field goal victory. Alabama, Florida. This is a rematch of the SEC championship. Alabama looked very good as usual. Florida, they've been under the radar because they haven't really played. They played 2 good games against local teams, FAU and South Florida, but nothing really like Jones for Florida. He has not looked good.
But their other quarterback has.
Yeah.
Which is where the interesting part comes in.
Yeah, I don't know who's starting. But it's gonna be at the
Jones
Swamp.
until further notice. Yeah, it's gonna be at the Swamp. It's gonna be number 1 versus 11. Give me Alabama, but not by as many as most people think.
I honestly give it to Alabama. I mean, Florida, like I said, they've been kind of under the radar. They've had very good offense. They've averaged 600 yards a game, right? But I mean, that's still against not really big schools, but not like FCS opponents. But I don't know. I still have Alabama winning again as another undefeated.
I agree. The spread currently is 14.5. In case you wanted to know.
But let's move on. Georgia Tech plays Clemson. Georgia Tech could be considered a trap game. It has been, in a few instances. But anyway, I think Clemson's going to win that game, no matter what.
Yeah, I I don't even remember the last time Georgia Tech beat Clemson. Honestly,
I don't know. I don't really, not really in the caring to look. However, let's move on. South Carolina, Georgia. I think Georgia wins that game. Just not gonna.
yeah, South Carolina looks really bad. They almost lost to ECU.
Yeah. Auburn, Penn State. That's gonna be like the big primetime game. Penn State, week 1, not too okay. I mean, they they played the Wisconsin game. Auburn, they put up big numbers, but they played Akron and Alabama State. So, like, it's kind of like a bleh. Bo Nix, he still has not thrown an interception all year, which is very impressive. But does that last? Does this Auburn undefeated streak of 2 wins last, though? I think it doesn't. I think Penn State's going to win.
I also think that Penn State wins because I do not trust Bo Nix to go into Happy Valley and play his ass off.
Yeah. I think it's just going to be composed by the crowd. Because even last season, with mostly empty stands, some games he just didn't look really good, really special. But the last game we're going to do a pick 'em of, which is kind of shocking because these are 2 teams that didn't really have too much. They didn't really. It was going to be. These 2 teams I knew were going to be competitive going into the season, but I didn't know it was going to be a top 25 showdown this early. Arizona State, BYU. Arizona State has had 2 pretty good wins. I'm somewhat high on them. And currently how the Pac-12 South is playing out, they may end up winning it, but we'll get there when we get there. We got to get past UCLA. And BYU, who had a very good win last week against Utah. Who you got winning that game?
Give me BYU. I want to see the train keep on rolling.
Yeah, and talk about polar opposites, right? Got one of the most religious schools in the country versus, party schools. It's party animals versus the Mormons. Let's say I want to keep the party going. I want Arizona State to win this game. Because who doesn't want a good Sun Devils team? Because that's just fun to watch. But I think that's the last game that's covered. I don't think there's any other notable games to talk about. I may let me double check that. I think I'm right on that. I am right. I don't think there's any other major games to really talk about. But yeah, I think that will end the episode, and I think that's gonna be it for this week. I'm Link. You can check me out over at the Salty Sports Podcast and follow me on Twitter. It's LinkSCN. Hog, do your.
You can follow me at Meme Man. You'll see the numbers, and I'm on the Discord as well. So I think that about does it, right?
I think we should make a Discord. I don't know. I just haven't.
We should. We definitely should. We need to wait for people to contact us both, and that's better because my Twitter account has a bunch of numbers in it, so I don't even remember what the numbers are.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely. If you want to hear news on that, just follow me or Hog on Twitter. We'll talk about it when we get there. But other than that, I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you for watching or listening all the way through, and we'll holler at you next week with our Week 3 recap and Week 4 discussion. We'll see you then.